I always thought Clara was the kind of woman who could light up a room without even trying. Her laugh was this soft, melodic thing that made you feel like everything was going to be okay, no matter how bad the day had been. We'd been married for 12 years, built a life in a quiet little suburb outside Chicago. Two-story house, picket fence, the whole dream. I worked long hours at the accounting firm, crunching numbers until my eyes burned, but it was worth it to see her smile when I came home. She'd greet me with a glass of wine and a kiss on the cheek, her auburn hair catching the light just so. That's how it was anyway until about 6 months ago. Started small. Little cracks in the routine I didn't think much of at first. She'd be on her phone more, texting someone with this faint smirk, her fingers dancing over the screen like she was sharing a secret. When I'd ask who it was, she'd say, "Oh, just a friend from yoga," and change the subject. I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? Clara wasn't the type to hide things, or so I thought. But then there were the late nights. She'd started volunteering at this community theater group, helping with costumes or something. Said it gave her a creative outlet. I didn't mind. I liked seeing her happy. One night, though, I came home early from a client meeting that got canceled. The house was dark, no sign of her. I figured she was still at the theater, so I called. No answer. Texted her too. Nothing. Hours passed, and around midnight, she breezed in. Her cheeks flushed, hair slightly mussed, claiming they'd had a long rehearsal. I nodded, poured her a glass of wine, and let it go. But something gnawed at me. The way she avoided my eyes. The way her perfume smelled different, like it had mixed with someone else's scent. I started paying attention after that. The signs were there if you knew where to look. Lipstick smudged on a napkin in her purse, a receipt for a coffee shop she never mentioned visiting, a pair of earrings I didn't recognize tucked into her jewelry box. I told myself I was paranoid. Clara loved me. She'd never do anything to hurt us. But doubt is a seed, and once it's planted, it grows roots you can't ignore. I decided to test it. One evening, I told her I'd be working late, but instead, I parked down the street and waited. Her car pulled out of the driveway 20 minutes later, heading not toward the theater, but somewhere else entirely. I followed her. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. She drove to a part of town I barely recognized. Older houses, dim streetlights. She parked outside a brick bungalow and went inside without knocking, like she'd been there 100 times. I sat there, engine off, staring at that door, my chest tightening. A man opened it. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and a grin I could see even from across the street. He pulled her in and the door shut behind them. I didn't move for an hour, just watched the windows, the shadows moving behind the curtains. When she came out, her coat was buttoned wrong, and she was smoothing her hair. Driving home that night, I felt like someone had hollowed me out with a spoon. The streetlights blurred through the windshield, and I couldn't tell if it was tears or just exhaustion. Clara had betrayed me, not with some faceless stranger from a bar, but with purpose, with someone she knew well enough to walk into his house like it was hers. I didn't confront her when she got home. She slipped in around 1 a.m., humming softly, and kissed my forehead as I pretended to sleep on the couch. Her lips felt like a lie, cold and foreign. The next morning, I watched her over coffee. She was radiant, chattering about the theater group, some play they were putting on next month. I nodded along, sipping my mug, but all I could see was that man's grin, the way he'd pulled her inside. Who was he? How long had this been going on? I needed answers, but I didn't want her to know I knew. Not yet. I had to be smart about it. So I started digging. Her phone was the obvious place to start, but she'd gotten clever. It was always locked now, a passcode I didn't know. I waited until she showered one evening, leaving it on the kitchen counter. I'd seen her type the code before, her fingers moving in a quick pattern. Our anniversary 0412. It worked. The screen lit up, and I scrolled through her texts. There he was. Mark. Messages stretching back months. Can't wait to see you tonight, he'd written last week. You make everything better, she'd replied. My stomach twisted. There were photos too, selfies of them laughing, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. Mark. The name didn't ring a bell at first, but then it hit me. Mark Delaney. He'd been at our barbecue last summer, a friend of a friend who'd lingered too long by the grill, chatting with Clara about some book they both liked. I'd thought he was harmless, just another guy with a loud laugh and a firm handshake. Now I saw it differently. The way he'd looked at her, the way she'd blushed when he complimented her potato salad. It had started right under my nose. I put the phone back before she noticed, but the images burned into me. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay next to her, listening to her breathe, wondering how she could act so normal. The woman I'd built my life with was a stranger now, wearing my wife's face. I wanted to scream, to shake her awake and demand answers, but I didn't. Revenge was forming in my mind. Not loud or messy, but slow, deliberate, something that would cut deeper than she could imagine. She'd taken my trust and twisted it. I take something from her too. The days after that discovery were a fog. I went to work, smiled at clients, filed reports, but my head was somewhere else. Every time Clara spoke, I heard two voices, hers and his, tangled together in those messages. I started following her more, piecing together her secret life. She met Mark twice a week, always under some flimsy excuse. Theater practice, a girls' night, a late coffee run. I'd trail her car, park a block away, and watch her slip into his house. Sometimes she'd stay for hours. Other times it was quick, like they couldn't wait to be alone. I got to know Mark without ever meeting him. His social media was public. Idiot didn't even lock it down. He was a contractor, mid-40s, divorced, with a smug face that screamed confidence. Posts about his projects, his gym routine, his dog. Then I found the comments. Clara's name popped up here and there. Little hearts and "looks great" replies. Public flirting right where anyone could see it. My friends could have seen it. Our neighbors. And I'd been blind. I started taking notes. Dates, times, addresses. I bought a small camera, the kind you can hide in a pocket, and taped it to my dashboard. The footage was shaky, but it caught her car pulling up, her walking in, the way she'd glance around before disappearing inside. Evidence. Not for a divorce lawyer, I wasn't thinking that small. This was for something bigger, something that would unravel her world like she'd unraveled mine. At home, I played the part, kissed her good morning, asked about her day, laughed at her jokes. She didn't suspect a thing. That was her mistake, thinking I was the same predictable husband she'd always known. But I was changing. I stopped drinking the wine she poured me, stopped eating the dinners she made, claiming a stomach bug. I needed my head clear. She'd tilt her head, concerned, and say, "You okay, hon?" I'd nod, smile, and imagine her face when she realized what was coming. One night, she came home late again, glowing in that way I now recognized. She slid into bed, her skin warm against mine, and whispered, "Love you." I said it back, but the words tasted like ash. I stared at the ceiling, plotting. Mark wasn't just a fling. He was her escape, her thrill. She thought she could have both, me at home, him out there. She was wrong. I'd make sure she lost everything she cared about, piece by piece. The plan took shape slowly, like a puzzle I was building in the dark. I didn't want to just hurt Clara. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done, to see it reflected back at her until she couldn't escape it. Mark was part of it too, but he was secondary. She was the one who'd promised me forever, who'd stood at that altar and meant it, or so I'd thought. I needed to know more about them, to understand the depth of their connection so I could twist it against her. I started with Mark's life. His contracting business was small but steady, mostly home renovations, a few bigger jobs. His website listed clients, testimonials, a phone number. I called it one afternoon, pretending to be a homeowner needing a quote. His voice was deep, friendly, the kind that put you at ease. "Happy to help," he said when I fed him a fake address. We set a time for him to come by. I hung up, my hands shaking. Hearing him made it real in a way the photos hadn't. When he showed up at the empty lot I'd given him, some foreclosed property I'd found online, I watched from my car. He paced around, clipboard in hand, frowning at the overgrown weeds. He called me back, left a voicemail, "Hey, think I got the wrong spot. Give me a ring." I didn't, but I saw him up close. Taller than me, broader, with that easy swagger Clara must have fallen for. I hated him, but I hated her more for choosing him. Back home, I dug deeper into her lies. Her theater group had a website too, a schedule of rehearsals. She'd been practicing on nights they weren't even meeting. I cross-checked her stories with the footage, the texts, building a timeline. She'd been with him at least once a week for 5 months. 5 months of smiles and "I love yous," while she built something else behind my back. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was emotional, deliberate. A whole second life she'd carved out. I decided to test her. Over dinner, I mentioned Mark casually. "Hey, didn't we meet that contractor guy at the barbecue? Mark something." Her fork froze halfway to her mouth, just for a second, before she smiled. "Oh yeah, maybe. I don't really remember." Liar. I pressed further. "Think he's still around? Could use someone for the garage." Her eyes flicked to me, then away. "I wouldn't know," she said too quickly. "I'll ask around at yoga." She changed the subject to the neighbor's dog, but I'd seen it, the crack in her mask. She was scared I'd figure it out. Good. By now, I was a ghost in my own life. I moved through our house like a shadow, watching Clara live hers like nothing had changed. She'd hum while folding laundry, kiss me goodnight, plan our weekend like we were still a team. But I wasn't her teammate anymore. I was her judge, her executioner, waiting for the right moment. The revenge I wanted wasn't loud or violent. It was precise, personal, something that would leave her broken without ever raising my voice. I started with her world, the things she loved. Clara thrived on admiration, her friends, her theater group, the way people looked at her like she was this perfect creative soul. I take that first. I made an anonymous email account and sent a message to the theater director, attaching a blurry photo from my camera. Clara and Mark outside his house, her coat misbuttoned. "Thought you should know your volunteer's been busy," I wrote. No names, just enough to stir whispers. 2 days later, Clara came home upset. "Someone's spreading rumors about me at the theater," she said, stirring her tea too fast. "They're saying I'm unreliable, sneaking off. It's ridiculous." I rubbed her shoulder, murmured something sympathetic, but inside, I was buzzing. The director had replied to my email. "Thanks for the heads up. We'll handle it." She wouldn't be kicked out, not yet, but the doubt was there now, tainting her little sanctuary. Next, I went after Mark's business. I called his clients from his website using burner numbers, posing as a concerned neighbor. "Heard he's been cutting corners," I'd say. "Just a heads up." I left vague reviews online, nothing traceable, just enough to make people hesitate. His phone started ringing less. I could tell from the way Clara complained about him being stressed lately. She didn't know I was the storm cloud over his head. But the real blow was still coming. I'd found something in her texts. A trip they were planning. A weekend away under the guise of a theater workshop. She'd already told me about it, all smiles, promising to bring me back a souvenir. I nodded along, but I was already working. This was my chance to turn her betrayal into a mirror she couldn't look away from. She'd feel every ounce of what she'd done to me, and she'd never see it coming. Clara's workshop was 2 weeks away, and I could feel the anticipation simmering in her. She'd drop hints about it over breakfast. How excited she was to get away for a bit. How the theater group had big plans. I'd smile, ask about the itinerary, and watch her weave lies like a tapestry. She didn't know I'd seen the texts with Mark. A cabin in Wisconsin, a long weekend, just the two of them. No theater, no group, just a getaway she thought I'd never suspect. It was perfect. Her overconfidence was the rope I'd used to hang her with. I let her pack, helped her fold sweaters, even carried her suitcase to the car. "Have fun," I said, kissing her cheek. She beamed, oblivious, and drove off Friday morning. I waited an hour, then got to work. I'd already tracked the cabin's address from Mark's phone, some rental site he'd foolishly left open on a screenshot. It was 2 hours north, nestled by a lake, all cozy and secluded. I didn't follow her yet. Timing was everything. Instead, I spent the day planting seeds. First, I called her best friend, Sarah, who'd always been nosy about our marriage. "Clara's been acting weird," I said, voice heavy with fake concern. "She's at this workshop, but I don't know. Something feels off." "You ever hear her mention a guy named Mark?" Sarah hesitated, then said no, but I could hear the gears turning. She'd dig now, ask questions, spread the worry. Next, I emailed her yoga group's coordinator from another anonymous account, attaching a photo of Clara and Mark at a diner, time-stamped from a night she'd claimed to be with them. "Is this one of your members?" I wrote. Doubt was my weapon, and I was firing it everywhere. That night, I drove to Wisconsin. The cabin was easy to find, lights glowing through the trees, her car parked next to his truck. I stayed in the shadows, a quarter-mile down the road, and set up my next move. I'd brought a drone, small and quiet, something I'd bought months ago for a hobby I never pursued. Now it had purpose. I flew it low, buzzing the cabin, its camera catching glimpses through the windows, her laughing, him pouring wine, their silhouettes close. I didn't need much, just enough to make it undeniable. When I got home, I uploaded the footage to a private cloud, time-stamped and labeled. Clara texted me around midnight, "Miss you. Workshop's great so far." I replied, "Miss you too," and stared at the screen until my eyes ached. She thought she was untouchable, living her double life. But I was rewriting the story, line by line, and she'd read the ending soon enough. Saturday passed in a blur of quiet rage. Clara sent me a photo, her standing by the lake, smiling, captioned, "Nature break." I knew Mark had taken it. Her hair was mussed the way it got when someone ran their hands through it. I saved it, added it to my growing file. The drone footage was gold, grainy, but clear enough to show her leaning into him, their hands brushing. I didn't need perfection. I needed truth, raw and jagged, to shove in her face when the time came. Kept busy, though. Called her parents, asked if they'd heard from her. "Oh, she's at that theater thing," her mom said, proud as ever. I hummed, then dropped it casually. "Yeah, hope she's okay up there with Mark." Her dad paused. "Mark who?" I backtracked, laughed it off. "Oh, just some guy from the group, I think." But the seed was planted. They'd call her, ask questions, and she'd squirm. I wanted her off balance, her perfect little world tilting before it crashed. Then I hit Mark where it hurt. His business was already wobbling from the whispers I'd started. I took it further, posted fake complaints on local forums, used burner accounts to warn about shoddy work and unreliable scheduling. I even called his biggest client, a real estate developer, pretending to be a concerned subcontractor. "He's been distracted lately," I said. "Personal stuff. Might not finish on time." By Sunday, his online rating had dipped half a star. Small cuts, but they'd bleed him dry eventually. Clara came home Sunday night, all smiles and stories. She hugged me, chattering about the workshop, how inspiring it was. I nodded, asked questions, let her dig her hole deeper. "Met anyone interesting?" I said, casual as anything. She faltered, just a flicker, then laughed. "Just the usual crowd." I smiled back, but my mind was racing. The footage, the calls, the cracks I'd made, they were all lining up. She thought she'd gotten away with it. She hadn't seen the trap closing around her. That night, I barely slept. I lay next to her, her breathing soft and steady, and planned the next step. She loved her reputation, her friends, her family, her little theater bubble. I'd take it all, strip it away until she was naked in the mess she'd made. But I'd do it slow, let her feel every tear before the final rip. Monday morning, Clara was back to her routine. Yoga, coffee with friends, humming around the house like nothing had changed. I watched her, a stranger in my kitchen, and felt the weight of what I knew. She didn't suspect I'd been to the cabin, didn't know I had her lies on video. I kept up the act, kissed her goodbye as she left for yoga, then sat at my desk and opened the footage. Her face lit up the screen, laughing with him, carefree. Fueled me, sharpened my focus. I started with her friends. Sarah called me back, voice tight. I asked Clara about the workshop. She got weird when I mentioned Mark. Said he's just a theater guy, but I don't know, something's off. I sighed, played the worried husband. Thanks for checking. I just want her to be okay. Sarah promised to keep an eye out. Good. The more eyes on Clara, the more pressure she'd feel. I sent another anonymous tip to the yoga group, this time with a still from the drone, her and Mark by the lake. Thought you'd want to know, I wrote. Her theater group was next. I mailed a USB drive to the director. No return address, just the footage and a note. Your volunteer's been busy. Maybe check her commitment. I pictured the fallout, whispers in the costume room, sidelong glances at rehearsals. Clara thrived on being adored there. Now they'd see her differently. She'd feel the shift, wonder why, and have no one to blame but herself. Mark's world kept crumbling too. His client called him while I listened on a burner phone I'd tapped into his line. Don't ask how, but I'd learned a few tricks. We're rethinking the contract, the developer said. Heard some concerns. Mark's voice was tense, promising to fix it. I smiled. He'd lose the job, maybe more, and Clara would hear him complain, wonder why his luck had turned. She'd never connect it to me. That evening, she came home rattled. Something's wrong at the theater, she said, stirring soup. People are acting strange, like they're mad at me. I hugged her, murmured, "That's awful," and hid my grin in her hair. The cracks were spreading, and she didn't even know the ground was about to give way. By midweek, Clara was fraying. She'd snap over little things. Burnt toast, a misplaced sock, then apologize, blaming stress. The theater's a mess, she told me over dinner. Someone sent the director this weird video, saying I'm not pulling my weight. It's nonsense. I nodded, spooning stew, and asked, what kind of video? She waved it off. Just some blurry clip, probably a prank. But her eyes darted away. She knew what it might show, even if she wouldn't admit it. Her phone buzzed constantly now. Her mom called, asking about the workshop, mentioning Mark. Dad said you sounded off when we asked, she'd said, according to Clara's frustrated retelling. Sarah texted too, probing about her weekend. The yoga group had gone quiet. She hadn't been invited to the last meetup. I don't get it, she muttered, scrolling through silence. I did. Her perfect little orbit was collapsing, and she was too tangled in her lies to see why. Mark was struggling too. I'd escalated, reported his truck for suspicious activity near the cabin, using a fake name. Cops wouldn't do much, but it'd spook him, tie up his time. His business reviews tanked further. Another client bailed. Clara mentioned it offhand. Mark's having a rough week. Some job fell through. I feigned sympathy, poor guy, and watched her fidget. She was worried for him, still tethered to his chaos. That was fine. I cut that rope soon enough. I upped the ante at home, planted a receipt from a Wisconsin gas station in her coat pocket, dated from the weekend. She found it Thursday, stared at it, then shoved it in the trash when she thought I wasn't looking. I asked later, casual, "Hey, didn't you lose a receipt the other day?" Her face paled. "No, must have been yours," she stammered. She was unraveling, doubting herself, and I hadn't even shown my hand yet. Friday, I set the stage for the finale. I booked a dinner at her favorite restaurant, told her we needed a night out. She agreed, hesitant but hopeful, like it might fix whatever she sensed breaking. I smiled, kissed her, and thought about the envelope in my desk. The one with stills from the drone, timestamps, everything. Tomorrow she'd see it all, and her world would burn. Saturday morning, Clara was nervous. She fussed with her hair, picked at her breakfast, asked twice if I was okay. I was calm, too calm, maybe, but she didn't notice. I'd spent the night finalizing everything. The envelope, the plan, the words I'd say. She'd built her betrayal on lies. I'd built my revenge on truth, cold and sharp. Dinner would be the stage, public enough to sting, private enough to twist the knife. I drove us to the restaurant, a little Italian place she loved, dim lights, red wine, the kind of spot where she'd once said she felt seen. Tonight she'd be seen, all right. She wore a green dress, one I'd bought her years ago, and chattered about fixing things with the theater. "I'll figure it out," she said, forcing a smile. I nodded. Let her talk. Let her think we were mending something. The waiter brought bread, and I waited. Halfway through the meal, I slid the envelope across the table. "Found this?" I said, voice steady. She frowned, opened it, and froze. The photos spilled out. Her and Mark, laughing by the lake, brushing hands in the cabin, caught mid-moment. Her fork clattered to the plate. Where'd you get these?" she whispered, eyes wide. I leaned in, kept my tone even. "I followed you, watched you, know everything." She tried to laugh it off, a shaky sound. "This is crazy. It's not what you think." I didn't blink. 5 months, Clara. Texts, trips, his house. I have it all, video too. Her face crumpled, color draining. People at nearby tables glanced over, sensing the shift. She grabbed my hand, voice low. "Please, not here. Let's talk at home." I pulled back. "No, you did this. You sit with it." I stood, left cash on the table and walked out. She didn't follow, not right away. I drove home, left her there, stranded in her shame. By morning, she'd come back, eyes red, begging to explain. I'd listen, but it wouldn't matter. Her friends, her family, her precious little life. They'd all see the photos soon, mailed out in neat little packages. She'd lose everything, and I'd watch her fall, step by cruel step. Clara stumbled through the door at dawn. Her green dress wrinkled, mascara streaked down her cheeks. She looked like a ghost of the woman I'd married, fragile and frantic. "We need to talk," she said, voice raw. I sat on the couch, coffee in hand, and stared at her. "Go ahead," I replied, flat and cold. She paced, hands twisting together, launching into a flood of excuses. Mark was just a friend. The trip was a mistake. She never meant to hurt me. Lies piled on lies, each one weaker than the last. I let her ramble, sipping my coffee, until she ran out of breath. Then I stood, walked to my desk and pulled out the stack of evidence. Texts printed from her phone, stills from the drone, the gas station receipt. I dropped it on the table between us. 5 months, I said. You planned it, hid it, smiled at me every day while you did it. Don't insult me with this. Her knees buckled, and she sank into a chair, staring at the papers like they might bite her. She tried again, softer now. I love you. I messed up, but we can fix this. I laughed. A sharp, hollow sound that made her flinch. Fix it? You built a whole life with him. I've got the footage, Clara. You laughing, touching him, lying to me after. There's no fixing that. She reached for me, but I stepped back. I mailed it all out this morning, I said. Your parents, Sarah, the theater group, your yoga friends. Everyone's getting a copy. Her eyes widened, panic setting in. You didn't, she whispered. I smiled. Check your phone. It started buzzing almost on cue. Her mom, Sarah, a dozen others, calls and texts piling up. She grabbed it, hands shaking, and scrolled through the chaos. How could you? She choked out, tears spilling. How could you? I shot back. You chose this. Now you live with it. She begged me to stop the mail, to call it off, but it was too late. The envelopes were gone, stamped and sent, little bombs ticking toward her world. I left her there, sobbing into her hands, and went upstairs. The house felt different now, mine, not ours. She'd broken it, and I'd broken her back. But I wasn't done. Mark still had a reckoning coming, and Clara's collapse was just the beginning. The next day, the fallout hit like a storm. Clara's phone didn't stop. Her mom left a voicemail, voice trembling, asking why she'd lied about the workshop. Sarah showed up at the door, demanding answers, but Clara wouldn't let her in. It's a misunderstanding, she kept saying through the crack, but Sarah wasn't buying it. She saw the photos, I'd made sure of that. You're a liar, Sarah snapped before storming off. Clara shut the door, slid down it, and cried into her knees. I watched from the kitchen, silent, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. Her theater group emailed her. A polite but firm note saying her services were no longer needed. The director had seen the USB, shared it with the board. Whispers had turned to exile. She read it aloud, voice breaking, then looked at me like I'd stabbed her. "You ruined everything," she said. "No," I replied, leaning against the counter. "You did. I just made sure everyone knew." She threw the phone at me, missing by a foot, and screamed. A raw, animal sound I'd never heard from her before. Mark called her that afternoon. I listened from the stairs as she put him on speaker, too shaken to hide it. "My business is tanking," he said, voice tight. "Clients are dropping. Cops keep showing up. Someone's screwing with me." Clara sobbed. "It's him. He knows everything." Mark swore, then went quiet. "We're done," he said finally. "I can't deal with this." She begged him not to go, but he hung up. I smiled. He dumped her the second it got hard. Exactly what I'd counted on. She turned to me, eyes wild. "Happy now? You took him too." I shrugged. "He was never yours to keep." She lunged at me, fists pounding my chest, but I grabbed her wrists, held her still. "You're done here," I said. "Pack your things." She yanked free, stormed upstairs, and I heard drawers slamming. Good. Let her go. The real blow was still coming. That night, I mailed one last package to Mark's ex-wife. Photos, texts, proof he'd been with Clara while dodging child support. She'd eat him alive in court. Clara didn't know yet, but she'd feel it soon enough. Clara moved out by Wednesday, dragging suitcases to her car while I watched from the porch. She didn't look at me, didn't speak, just loaded up and drove off, probably to her mom's. The house was quiet after that, too quiet, but I didn't mind. It was mine again, cleansed of her. I changed the locks, scrubbed her perfume from the air, and sat with my thoughts. She'd left a note on the counter. "I'm sorry." But I tore it up. Sorry didn't undo 5 months of betrayal. Her world kept crumbling without me lifting another finger. Her parents called me, confused, hurt, asking why I'd sent the photos. "Because she lied to you too," I said. "Ask her." They didn't argue. Her mom cried, her dad went silent, and I hung up. Sarah posted a vague rant online about fake friends, and the yoga group's chat went dead on Clara's end. She was a pariah now, untouchable, exactly as I'd planned. Mark's life imploded too. His ex-wife got my package. I heard through a mutual friend she'd filed to reopen their case. His business reviews hit rock bottom. Another client sued him for unfinished work. I'd nudged it all along, but he'd built the mess himself. Clara called me that night, voice hoarse. "Mark's done with me, and it's your fault. You destroyed us both." I laughed. "You destroyed us first. He's just collateral." She hung up, and I pictured her alone, staring at the wreckage. I wasn't finished, though. Clara loved attention, craved it like air. I'd take that last shred from her. I'd save the best for the end. A public unraveling she couldn't escape. I contacted a local blogger, someone who thrived on small-town scandals. "Got a story for you," I said, anonymous, and sent the highlights. Photos, texts, the cabin trip, cheating wife, ruined contractor, juicy stuff. They ate it up. Friday, the post went live. No names, but anyone who knew us would connect the dots. Clara's face wasn't shown, but the details were unmistakable. I sipped whiskey and watched the comments roll in. Shock, pity, glee. She'd see it eventually. She'd know it was me. The blog post spread like wildfire. By Saturday, it was on every local Facebook group, shared with captions like, "Whoa, drama." And guess who? Clara's friends, ex-friends now, texted me, fishing for confirmation. I didn't reply. Let them figure it out. She called me that afternoon, hysterical. "You put it online? Everyone's talking about it. My boss saw it. My job might be gone." I leaned back in my chair, calm. "You made the choices. I just made them loud." She screamed something incoherent and hung up. Her mom called next, begging me to take it down. "She's falling apart," she said. "She's lost everything." I felt a flicker of guilt. Her parents didn't deserve this, but it passed. "She lost me first," I said. Tell her to stop calling. They didn't reach out again. Clara's life was a house of cards, and I'd kicked the table out from under it. Her job did let her go, some morality clause. A friend told me she'd have nothing left to stand on soon. Mark's turn came fast. His ex-wife's lawyer shredded him in court. Back payments, plus interest, plus a custody tweak. He lost his truck to a lien, then his house to foreclosure rumors. I didn't do that part. I just lit the match. Clara texted me Sunday. One line, "I hate you." I didn't respond. Hate was fine. It meant she felt it. All of it. Every piece I'd taken from her. I walked through the house that night, empty but mine. No more humming, no more lies. I'd burned her world down, slow and deliberate, and it felt not good, exactly, but right. She'd chosen Mark, chosen betrayal, and I'd chosen justice. But there was one last twist, one final cut to make it complete. She'd see it soon, and it'd hurt worse than anything else. Monday, I filed for divorce. Papers drawn up, assets split, her name off everything. She'd get nothing. Not the house, not my savings, not a dime. I'd earned it. She'd squandered it. The divorce papers hit Clara like a freight train. I had them served at her mom's house. Public, humiliating. A process server knocking while neighbors peeked through curtains. She called me, voice shaking with rage. "You're taking everything? After all this?" I kept it simple. "You took my trust. This is the price." She tried to argue, but I hung up. The lawyer had it locked tight. Prenup clauses, infidelity proof, all in my favor. She'd walk away with her clothes and her car. Nothing else. The blog post kept rippling. Someone guessed it was her in the comments. "Sounds like Clara from the theater." And it snowballed. Her name trended locally for a day. A scarlet letter she couldn't scrub off. She stopped going out. Friends said. Hid at her mom's like a hermit. Mark vanished too. Moved out of town, someone heard. Chased off by debt and disgrace. I didn't care where he went. He was a footnote. She was the story. A week later, she showed up at the house, thin and hollow-eyed, begging for a second chance. "I'll do anything," she said, standing in the driveway. I was wrong. I see it now. I looked at her, the woman I'd loved, and felt nothing. "You saw it too late," I said, shutting the door. She pounded on it, sobbing, until a neighbor called the cops. They escorted her off, and that was the last I saw of her. The divorce finalized in a month. I kept the house, the accounts, the life I'd built. She got a studio apartment somewhere cheap, a job at a grocery store. Word got around. Her friends faded. Her family tiptoed around her. Her reputation was ash. I'd taken every piece she valued, love, trust, pride, and turned it to dust. Now I sit here, alone but whole, the silence my reward. She'd betrayed me in a way I never imagined. Built a secret life with real people, real moments. I'd torn it down with the same care she'd used to hide it. Cruel? Maybe. But it was mine and it was done. She'd never forget me, never escape the weight. And that was enough.